Hey everybody, it's Jason Leosantis again, me here on my show, formerly Outside the Box. We call it Project Humanity now because it's about humanity. And tonight I've got a really special guest on who I've seen John's stuff for years. Jon Wedger. John, thanks for coming on. It's great. I'm really going to big you up, you know.
No, no, it's my pleasure, Jason. Thank you for inviting me.
That's great. It's great. I've been meaning to get you on for ages and ages. I saw you in London on the lockdown marches and all that kind of thing. I got banned from YouTube at that particular time.
Yeah,
Most people who will see on you, John, they know you, Metropolitan Police detective. You were dealing with the most horrible things sometimes with child abuse, the sexual abuse of children. And I want to say before we're not just don't switch off everybody. We're not just going to talk about that, right? We're going to talk about self-empowerment and finding that great strength within us to move forward into a new paradigm. Yeah, that's what I want to speak to John about tonight. However, I have to say before we start that John, we used to do things at Dartington Great Hall here about conferences with child sex trafficking and the satanic abuse of children. And I used to get people coming to me and say, Jason, I can't see that. I can't face that. And I
yeah,
simply used to say, well, the reason it's going on is because people can't face it, which gives it carte blanche evil to do whatever it likes, because it's that horrifying. John's had to look at stuff which is so terrible that I can't even imagine what you've had to look at. But John, I don't know where to really start with you, but should we give a bit of your background or should we just roll straight into all the stuff? What do you want to do?
Well, just for the benefit of those who don't know me, see, the thing is, Jason, society's in stratus, right? And I'll go to protest marches. I like to go and see what's going on. I could go to, say, for instance, a Tommy Robinson march or something like that, um, and people will know me. But I'll go to the farmers' march and they won't know me. So I think in respect, and it's really weird, the middle classes don't seem to know who I am. The low and the working classes do, the criminal classes sort of do, and now the upper classes and the ruling classes do, because I started supporting um, victims and survivors of abuse that come from the upper and ruling classes. And I'd like to get into that a bit more about criminality and the fact that child abuse is very, very unique in respect to criminality. So my background is I'm a retired Metropolitan Police detective. Um, I specialised in child abuse investigations, but my real sort of rise to prominence is the fact that I've become what's known as a whistleblower. And as much as in 2014, I officially stood up and spoke out about the Metropolitan Police's and the governmental institution as a whole, their deliberate cover up of a term. I'm not endorsing this term. I didn't make this term up, but I say it as it is. I know some people get the ump with it. Child prostitution, and some people they argue the semantics of this. They give me a seminar in semantics and say children don't have the choice and all that. Let's not get caught up in that, right? As a couple, we said it as it was. It was quite a raw environment. You can't sugarcoat these things. But in doing so and speaking out, I was threatened by a very, very senior officer with the loss of my home, my job, and my children if I ever disclosed what I'd found out, right, regarding kids from the care system, some kids as young as 9 years old up to 14-year-olds that were being taken out and were being pimped out. And they were given crack cocaine and heroin. So I continued in my role of speaking out, and as a result, I enjoyed a 4-year campaign to silence me, which was particularly vicious. The police tried to imprison me, well, tried to get me before a court with a plan of imprison me on 9 separate occasions. They stopped paying me for 3 years, so I had no income for 3 years. I was a single parent, and I like to talk about that if I may, because it's very important, single parent, especially my attitude towards single parenting. I was a single parent to 4 children. The police tried to put one of my children in care, and I nearly lost everything. Not only was I going to lose my home, my job, and children, as threatened with, I nearly lost my liberty as well. But I continued in my journey, and I want to say a thank you to a couple of people. First one, the one who sort of really protected me in as much as it was the first interview I ever did. It was a very young self of me. When I look back, I think, wow, is it so? And that was when I went on a show called the UK Column with what I class as a very stalwart guy, like myself. Brian Gerrish is who I'm referred to, has come under attack. People accuse me of being an MI5 spy and a shill. I don't even know what shill is. I have no idea. But Shill, Jon Wedger's Shill, and Brian, I know, has been accused of the same because we both served the Crown and worked for the government. And my response to these people who make these claims, you're thick. You know, in a nutshell, you're thick. Wind it in because you don't know what you're on about. Smoke another joint, take a Zopiclone, go to sleep, whatever, because you're not right. But anyway, that aside, I don't like to talk ill of people, and that's the last probably I'll do of that. But it's just the problem is with these. They're not even critics because to critique is constructivism. It is trolling, and it actually causes people not to do their job. And if we don't do our job, the protectors, like yourself and myself, and stand up speaking out for issues that matter, the abuse continues. So I would say that these trolls are actually sort of aiding and abetting, counsel and procuring child abusers. I'm going to say that. And I generally think that they are. They might not know they're doing it, but they desperately are very, very detrimental. If you're going to do anything, critique it, don't troll it, But we're dealing with an environment, child abuse, in which it causes people to become very, very mentally and emotionally retarded isn't the word because it's not about that. The problem is when someone is abused. If you take if a person was made up of three parts, like a three balls of a snowman, you've got your intellectual self, you've got your physical self, you've got your emotional self. So when a child is abused, many things happen, both mentally, physically, psychology wise, and also spiritually. But someone who's abused as a child can go on to attain good merit in their sort of academic field, and the reason being that there'll be a need to show the world who you are, and it won't affect your acumen and your intelligence. It will damage your thought processes, but it won't affect that. Physically, people can going to do very well in the physical arena because there'll be a need to sort of have self-empowerment or bulk yourself up that you've been bullied, you've been hurt, it will never happen again. You get people that go into very, very tough regiments in the military because they've been hurt, they know pain. No one will ever hurt them, not they've been hurt. But emotionally, they're very screwed unless they get the right help, the right therapy. Because when a child is abused, that emotional clock stops. And that causes that person to have the inability to emotionally reason. So you'll get a grown adult with the reasoning of a child. And with that, will unfortunately bring along a degree of narcissism because children are naturally narcissistic. And if you continue to hurt a child, you will break them in two ways. Giving them too much love can cause a kid to become narcissistic, or no love, or not enough love. Either way, you damage them. And narcissism can then be the gateway into psychopathy and things like that. So we're dealing with people that are very, very broken. I am not in any way criticising victims and survivors. My stance has always been to stand up for them. And I have suffered greatly for standing up and speaking out. But the second person I
Well,
really
John,
want.
John, but stop. I'm sorry to stop you, right? Because you've got so much to say, but can I stop you there just very briefly, to just for me to say thank you to Brian as well, right? Because I've done, and please, we won't forget where you are with the next person you're going to thank. I've worked with Brian, right? I've been around Brian. He's been here to my house, and he's spoken about the child abuse at our conferences, the satanic thing in the whole system, yeah. And I'll never forget, I asked him once, I said, Brian, how do you stay so strong? And we'll come on to this later on, but I want to just put it in here. And he said, I wear the full armor of God, right?
Of course,
Now, that guy's amazing. He's helped people and people don't even know about it. But what I want to say before we carry on, John, I want to say thank you to you, right? Because I haven't said that yet. For you to carry on, I've had David Icke's on the show again in the beginning of April. I went to see him, I don't know, 40 or 35 years ago. And he said the best thing ever happened when people laughed at him because he could really be who he was then, right? Now that guy's like gone through hell like yourself. But what an amazing thing for you now, John, and people like David. I know it's all coming out because I got beaten up by the Guardian, the Times, the BBC.
Yeah.
I'm not doing the big pity thing here, John, but I know what it's like to be attacked and called a nutcase, conspiracy nutcase. But what a beautiful time for someone like you, John. So thank you for keeping going. And there's people who haven't been born yet who will benefit greatly from what you're talking about now. You kept going, and now it's all coming out with Mandelson, with this, with that. And one more thing I want to carry on. I want to say this, but I don't want to forget this. I wrote it up here, and I want to talk about this after you've spoken about this next person, John. I want to talk to you about the fact that humanity is actually abused and MK altered the whole of humanity, really, except for people in the jungle and stuff, maybe. But we're being abused physically, spiritually, and mentally, and we've all been horribly conditioned and attacked. It's almost soul theft, and we'll go on to that later. So, sorry, John,
Yeah.
to jump in. Carry
Yeah.
on with who's the next person?
Yeah. Well, the next person I want to thank, and this is I'm writing a book called Ironic. And it is the irony of really my life, because when I stood up and spoke out as a whistleblower, apart from two incredibly brave police officers that stood up for me and risked a lot in doing so, I sort of pretty much stood on my own. Oh, I thought I was on my own for a little while. And the same as survivors, when they stand up and speak out, they stand on their own. No one stands with them. And sadly, out of 100 people, 80 will remain silent that have been abused. And the 20% that do come forward, if they make an allegation, the chance of that, in respect to serious criminality of sexual abuse of a child or rape or whatever, the chance of that attaining a conviction in the court is 2%. Does that make, the 80 that don't come forward, does it make them disingenuous, and does it make the 98% of cases that fail lies? No, of course it does not. It does not, So the person who really came to my help, second to Brian, was actually someone from the criminal classes, and me being a serving detective at the time, I found quite ironic. And it went on to become probably the toughest guy I've ever met. And it's a guy called Bill Maloney
Oh, pie and
of
mash, pie and mash.
Higher Match Films. Wow. You
What
know, yeah. I like to think when you get the trolls, everything, I thought none of you would ever go up to him and troll him to his face, because I wouldn't have a face, afterwards. Wow, what a tough guy, And he went on to become not just my friend, like my brother.
Where is he now? What's he doing now? I haven't seen him for a while.
He's retired, and he needed to, he needed to. He handed the baton over to me many years ago, but I've never come across a guy like him. He's what you call a true lion of a man. He's a born leader, and I would and I did follow this man into battle many times. We went into Parliament nearly 14 times. We took on the establishment. I'm not grandiosing it, but
John, listen,
it's a high risk game.
grandiose it, mate. Now is the time for you and Pie and Mash and people like John Maloney. Look, it's all coming out about the Epstein files, and people years ago and think, oh, it can't be true. They'd never do that.
Yeah,
People in government.
Well, what I mean, you mentioned two people, Brian Gerrish and David Icke, and they were very instrumental in talking about this. Brian took on the case of Robert Greene when he was going on about the Holly Gregg case, which involved people in the Scottish judiciary and parliamentary realms. And I'd like to, if I can, a bit later on, go on a bit more about the inquiry that went on, the government inquiry into the thing, because this is where we see evidence of a true high-level cover-up. And of course, David Icke, there's a few things on the theology side of things I do differ with him, but hey-ho, that's life. But when he went on about Ted Heath and his eyes blackening and the ritual abuse things, he hit me in the heart, because he was right. He was very, very accurate. And like I say, us people that speak up on the child abuse stuff, prove us wrong. go out there and prove us wrong, because you can't.
Well, he
You
challenged Heath,
can't.
didn't he? He challenged Heath. He said, "Prove me wrong."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Heath was like, "Yeah, yeah."
Well, when the turning point for me was when Savile, Sir Saint Jimmy Savile, the protector of children, as some people saw him, the builder of hospitals and
Jim will fix
disability
it.
wards and everything.
Jim will fix it for
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
I mean, when he died, and then the BBC were inundated with complaints that he was a child abuser, rapist, and everything else, and possibly a necrophiliac, and maybe worse. That they held their own inquiry. Well, I mean, how can anyone self-adjudicate? It's the most ridiculous thing going.
And is it
And
true? Sorry to jump in, John. Is it true? Because I've looked at people say yes, it is, and yes, it isn't. No, it's not. About is it true that Starmer was working for the CPC then,
yes,
and he turned
he
a
was.
blind eye? Is that true or not?
Yeah, Stan was definitely in charge of CPS, because he used to work in a premises called Stag House in Victoria. And
Mm.
I've actually put an advice file before him. In the early days, he was an active barrister, and I remember the guy. He won't remember me. I was a young constable, but I definitely remember him, back in that day. But with the Jimmy Savile thing, when Dame Janet Smith tried to cover it up and made an absolute appalling effort at that, a real dog's dinner of it, and then that led on to a governmental inquiry, and then they were inundated, and of course they then had to set up Operation U Tree, and they were flooded. I think something like 4,000 complaints came in a very short period of time. But in amongst all of that, I was pretty much thinking I was on my own. And then a guy came forward, well, two guys came forward. One was a bloke called Lenny Harper, and Lenny Harper was the chief constable of, chief constable, sorry. He was a commanding officer, a man of ACPO, Senior Association of Chief Police Officers. It's a bit like in the military, you've got commissioned and non-commissioned ranks. ACPO are like the commissioned ranks. He was that level, and he took on the inquiry of Haute de la Garenne in the Channel Islands, the little sort of offshore sort of dependency called Jersey, and Haute de la Garenne was a kids' home. They now turned it into a youth hostel. But it was a kids' home in which kids were shipped out from the mainland there and were abused on an appalling level. And there were rumours that kids were murdered, tortured to death, were beaten, were raped, and there was also ritualistic abuse went on in the basement. And
Someone,
Lenny Harper,
sorry to jump in, John. Sorry to jump in, but someone came in my shop last week in Totnes, Devon, and told me that their family was a part of something terrible like that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and you'll find this all throughout these little islands these British dependency. There was a major one in the Ascension Islands, St Helena, Ascension and Tristan da Cunha. The same, there was that been going on since Napoleonic times, and the locals were actually trading the virginity of their daughters to the American airmen and American sailors for fresh fruit, because these islands relies on importation, and that was going on until recent times. And they sent a team of officers from the United Kingdom, because they're actually governed by the police force over here. So, bizarrely enough, the Ascension Islands, I think it might be Essex or Kent take responsibility, their constabularies, and Devon and Cornwall police, a sort of an offshoot of them, which they cover, is the Falkland Islands. So Devon and Cornwall police will take part in the training and bits and pieces with the Falkland Islands. And the Falkland Islands had a massive problem about 5 or 6 years ago with child abuse issues. There was also a lot of child abuse claims coming out for the Chagos Islands that are in the news now because of Diego Garcia. You've had them in the Pitcairn Islands, all over. But Jersey, the Channel Islands and Jersey, Haute de Garenne, it was particularly spiteful. And weirdly enough, Jersey has the feudal system. So as well as the common law, rule of law like we have on the mainland here, they have the feudal system running. So the title gentry have got extra privileges. And part of the extra privileges they got is that their children, their direct offspring, can join the honorary police force of Jersey without any training. And they can just turn up, be given a warrant card, right, be a warranted officer, given a uniform, allowed to drive the cars and turn up the calls with no training. And they found one of the officers was a convicted rapist, but he was allowed to do so because his parents were Lord and Lady, whatever, of the Channel Islands. But Lenny Harper proved these allegations right. There was evidence. There was anthropology going on, archaeology going on in the basement of Hotel Lagrange. And they sifted through the soil that had been loaded into this basement to cover it up. They were told that there will be a bath there where the kids were drowned in a bath and tortured in the bath. There will be blood in that bath. There will be handcuffed manacles to the wall. And they may well find, skeletal remains. And that's exactly what happened. They found skull that was identified as being that of a juvenile child. They found blood, and they found a bath, they found the manacles, they found it all. And it was all shut down. And Lenny Harper was attacked and threatened pretty much in the same manner as me. I call it the algorithm of bullying. They tend to do the same thing to us coppers. And bear in mind, police officers, Jason, they're not subject to employment law. So they can do with us whatever they want. And let me tell you now, back in the day, they used to. And bullying, it was quite a raw environment. A lot of the guys that come fresh out of the military, and if your face didn't fit and you weren't willing to fit in, you got a hard time, and you did. And you either sucked it up, grew a spine and got on with it, or you would get crushed. And that's just how it was. And that's that. Is it good or bad? It's a bit of both, in my opinion, because you're out there frontlining it and you deal with the most horriblest of the horrible, But another guy come forward. Now, this next guy I'm going to mention is probably the bravest man I've ever met in my life. A man called Mike Veal. And he took on an inquiry, a posthumous inquiry, albeit, into Ted Heath, right? 33 victims of Ted Heath, male victims, said that they were buggered by Ted Heath, raped forcefully, right? By him as a child, right?
And Ted Heath, just to remind people, because I got David Icke on the show early April. Ted Heath was the one that David Icke was in a dressing room with him when he was going to give a talk somewhere, and he said he saw his eyes turn into almost something really terribly, horribly satanic.
Evil. And in the inquiry, and because Ted Heath was the Prime Minister during the early 70s of the United Kingdom, he took the UK into the European Common Market. And Mike Veal openly stated on Sky News that Ted Heath, there's evidence and rumours linking him to satanic ritual abuse. Now, I've spoken to a survivor of satanic ritual abuse who claims that she has seen Ted Heath at a ritual, and she said he cut a child's throat, but he had a thing attached to his hand. Right now, other people have said, other victims said that he wore a glove that had a talon attached to it.
And by the way, don't switch off everybody because we're going to talk about really uplifting things soon. So go on, carry on.
But Mike Veal and Lenny Harper and myself, we became friends because we were trauma bonded and we were all threatened. Mike Veal was different because he was the chief constable. And he was without a doubt the most professional man I've ever met. He joined the police as a cadet at 16. He was born to be a policeman, and he rose to the highest of the highest, which was chief constable. He was straight. He was absolutely straight. There was no way they could get to him. But he knew he was in a world of trouble taking on this investigation because he knew about possible Masonic cover-ups, corrupt cover-ups, people being compromised. Because there's a lot, as you go through your journey in policing, if you've been on some of these quite sexy sort of units, very proactive detective units, the scope for getting compromised is quite large,
Like
I'm not
what you're
saying,
talking about, bribes and gifts and all sorts of
yes,
things. Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I'm talking about
Money. Yeah.
money, bribing women, and everything else, drugs and all sorts. And I always said I do a lot of talking in prisons and various institutions, and I get asked, "Have I ever been involved in any corrupt practices?" And I say the first thing the police teach you to do is to lie. It's the first thing they teach you to do, and then give false evidence, bear false witness. I'm not saying I ever did it. I must be the only one who never did. And funny enough, I gave this talk, and in the crowd was the head of the Police Christian Society, and he went, "I've never lied in my evidence ever, John." I was like, "Yeah, okay, okay, dokie, right, yeah." Not saying I have, I'd never go down that line. But a guy said to me, you talk about this, but I bet you've been involved in uh, corrupt practices and all that. And bear in mind, the guy's in prison serving a sentence. I said, "That's okay. What are you in for?" He went, "Kidnap and torture." I said, "Will you tell me every single crime that you've committed you ain't been nicked for? And I'll tell you if I have been involved in any corrupt practices." Now, let's be adults here and carry on with why I'm actually here. So let me put this right, Jason. Couple of things with me. Firstly, I don't care if I upset an adult. My place on this planet Earth is not to placate adults, right? I want to be the man that my actions and my words will do everything to prevent children being abused and justice for those who have.
Thanks.
So you
Thank
can't
you.
make an omelette without breaking eggs. So
Thank you.
I'm not out to insult anyone or anyone else, but sometimes it can come across as a bit obtuse at times. But I turned around to this crowd and I said, "Look, I don't care. It's not my problem if the police beat prisoners up. I'm not interested. If you don't get beat up, don't mouth off to them. I don't know. And also, I don't care if the police steal drug dealers' money. I'm not interested. That's not my problem. Go and get a normal job. Don't deal drugs. Don't do crime. I don't care. Right? Don't come belly aching to me. I'm not interested. Right? Life's tough. Get on with it. But don't cover up crimes involving children and expect me to say nothing. That bridge I would not cross. And I pretty much was alone by people like Lenny Harper and Mike Veal. And
And just to say, John, what people don't realize here, because most people that never do that, there's a line most of them would not cross. In other words, it's like, well, not only can they face it, it's almost like they're terrified, of punishment. So you've literally put your life on the line. It's almost like, you know, put a gun to my head, I'll still protect children, and I really want to thank you for that, John. Thank you so much.
well, I mean, I went on this journey
There's
of
not many
standing up
people,
and
not many people.
speaking out. Yeah, and I sort of became quite well known. I started talking abroad. My videos. I started running a campaign called Voice for the Voiceless. So I used the skills my tradecraft from the police, and one of them was as an interrogator and an interviewer. I was a specialist interviewer, and I would interview children and victims of violent and sexual crimes. So you have to be very, very well trained because the scrutiny you come under in court is very, very intense. So legally and evidentially, you've got to be spot on. So I'd use them skills to go out there and do a campaign called Voice for the Voiceless, in which I would speak to people mainly from the criminal community who ended up in a life of violent, dysfunctional, dishonest criminality, purely because they were placed into care and they were abused. And therefore, they got a hatred for authority. Their behaviour became antisocial. They saw anyone with any governance over them as being a threat to them or coercively controlling them. And then they went outside of society and went into crime. And if you look at 8% of the prison population, they come from troubled backgrounds. Now, abuse takes many forms. It can be emotional, it can be psychological, educational, it can be religious, or it can be sexual. And usually it's a mixture of all of them. And the damage it has on the kid is profound to the dying day. And it goes on beyond that. It has been cited both both in educational doctrines and religious doctrines, and actually on another level on social services studies as well. That someone who's been abused, that abuse can, and in many cases goes on for 3 generations. So you're harming your future generations. It's sins of our fathers. It's the most appalling crime. And what I found, I didn't want to go into child abuse investigations. I had no interest in them. I had a very, very successful and highly entertaining and interesting policing career. I've had one of the best policing careers, I think, of anyone I've come across, really. I brought up 4 kids on my own, so I always had to have that work balancing, which was tough. And I was a very young man. I was still in my late 20s at the time. So, it was hard going. I investigated crimes in casinos. I was one of 2 that globally investigating crimes in casinos. My colleague would go around the world. I couldn't because of the kids, but I worked on the river police. I was tracking people down. I worked for the National Crime Squad. Really, really fascinating, interesting stuff, and it was brilliant. But the kids stuff, I didn't want to deal with dysfunctional kids because I had my own family. I was a single parent, so by default, it was dysfunctional in its own right. And it's very draining. But the kids found me. I never found the kids. And once I started taking the testimonies, and once I started dealing with the victims and then the offenders, I realised this was the only area where you truly, truly make a difference. And actually, someone defrauding a bank will get stuff. So what? So what? I was struggling to pay my mortgage, and I saw the debt I was in, so I didn't care for the banks. You got the flying squad that go around the Sweeney, but all they are really are sort of warranted officers that are the bully boys and the debt collectors for the banks. That's all they are, really. And if you look at it there, it's a bit morally reprehensible, really, And I thought that's not.
It's terrible. Look, and I want to go on to the system with you after, if we can, if we got time. It's going to go so quick with you because you're a great guest to talk about the corruption in the system and the slavery and the debt-based system. I mean, our system is based on short-term greed, profit, power, debt, and slavery. It should be the opposite of that: happiness, joy, freedom, blah blah blah. But I want to, just before we carry on, John, I'm sorry to jump in, but I want to make sure I remember to ask you about Starmer, yeah, because it's all coming out about the Epstein thing now, and that's I'm so glad about that for people like yourself and David Icke and Brian Gerrish and other people who've been talking about this for years and being literally labelled as sort of conspiracy nutcase fanatics. So with it all coming out now, well, let me put it in a nutshell. Are there horrors that will shake the world, John? Because I knew some.
Okay.
I used to know someone who went into Parliament, right? And he said to me, because I'm an artist, he said there's a gallery in Parliament. He said there's paintings in there, and he went through a few of them: Cyril Smith, Edward Heath, Lord Mountbatten, and the royal family. And with it all coming up with Epstein, I've got to obviously ask you: do you think Trump's gone into Iran as a bit of a cover up for that at this time? But more than that, this chap said to me, he said, do you know about Charles and the royal family? I said, well, I've heard some things. I think they killed Diana for a start. He said, children, lots of children. And do you know what he said, John? He said they're untouchable. They're untouchable. And that was before Epstein, before Savile, and before Prince Andrew. He told me that, right? So what I want to say to you, just touch on that a bit, for people.
Well, look. If this guy in Parliament told you that, right, you're a professional artist, you're a man of some caliber, you've got the guy that's got the same status within Parliament, and you struggle with it. Do you think what the victims and survivors of these evil monsters, when they name these people, kids that are illiterate because they don't get educated, because when they're in a class, they've been up all night because night time's when the predators come out. So they have a thing called hypervigilance. And a lot of the survivors that went to these schools and, or were being abused at home, they underachieved, not because they were stupid and thick, they underachieved because they were worn out, because at night they were being hurt, being abused, or on total hypervigilance, So they didn't get an education. They may not watch the telly. They would not have been educated into who's who in politics. They just know it was men in suits. There was a care home in Scotland called Fornethi, and Brian Gerrish did a lot with the Fornethi survivors. And this was a residential home for girls from maladjusted families and kids in need of respite, families in need of respite. It was all a lie. They put kids into this home from the west coast of Strathclyde, the impoverished region of Glasgow, shoved them in this kids' home in the middle of absolute nowhere.
Was it like a castle, John? Like a castle set?
Yes,
Someone
yes,
someone phoned me the other day who had been abused in there, and I ain't going to
yeah,
say any more than that at the
yeah,
moment.
yeah. In Perthshire, the moment the girls went there, they were whipped, beaten, hair pulled. Women, when they abuse, it's done with a spite men haven't got. And let me tell you now, women do abuse. I had a meeting the other day with the head psychotherapist for the Home Office, and she said 60% of our most dangerous murderers in the United Kingdom in prison, 60% were abused by women, right? So we want to break this myth about Pakistani grooming gangs doing everything to kids. It's a lie. 80% of all child abuse in this country goes on in the home, and a majority is perpetrated without the woman's protection by the stepfather. So the biggest risk to kids are step parents, right? Causes a kid 30 times more chance of being abused. So that's the importance to have a solid united family, and we need to kick this baby mummy, baby daddy, baby father culture straight out the window, because it is causing our children to be abused. It needs to stop, and it's socially trendy to do so. And there's a couple of cultures that almost endorse it. Now, whether the inception of it comes back from colonialism or what, it don't matter. What matters is you protect your children. And if you really are a lion, be a lion and protect your pride. And if you really are a lioness, don't abandon your cubs. And I think you know, it doesn't take someone with a modicum of intelligence to understand where I'm coming from with this, because I don't want to upset anyone. You
My
know,
own, my own, my own, my own friend John, I was at his funeral a few years ago. He hung himself, yeah, and I wish he hadn't, because he would have been so good for helping people with depression and who had been abused, because he was abused, and they spoke about it as his funeral. His brother spoke about it as his funeral, yeah. His brothers were abusing him, sodomizing him. His father was abusing the brothers. The mother was involved, yeah, and one of them got done in the end. But I was weeping. I was weeping at his funeral because I felt so sorry for him.
yeah, of course.
It was a terrible thing, But but these bastards don't seem to get done. It's
No,
like,
they don't. No,
so.
no. And we're going to come on to this very, very quickly.
Mm,
So in Fornethi, when this Scottish inquiry was years later than the English one actually came to fruition, the findings were absolutely staggering, right? And they findings from Fornethi, they interviewed 20 girls. Out of the 20 girls, 15 of them said the same thing. And they said that they would be in there during the day in the class, right? Posh white men would come around with the headmistress, who was convicted at the latter end of last year, which was a massive result. And then they'd pick out the girls they wanted. The girls didn't know why. They were sedated, the girls, that night, and then they were taken to a castle nearby, right? So if you're taking a kid from one place to the other, that's called trafficking for the purpose of a criminal gain, you know? And they were put in this room, and they remember it smelt of tobacco smoke, all very posh white men, old men, and they were raped, right? And 15 out of 20 picked one particular guy out as the main abuser of them, right?
Prince
And
Philip.
no, a man called Lord Nicholas Fairbairn, Margaret Thatcher's most favourite lord. He was classed as a bit of an eccentric, and he had a girlfriend at the time, right? He was having an affair with this woman, and her name was Esther Ranson. Now, Nicholas Fairbairn was also named, his name was written down in the list of Elm Guest House along with Cyril Smith. And he was abusing boys as well, right? And he went on to abuse these girls. And the thing here, Nicholas Fairbairn, his job, he was the advocate depute for Scotland. And what that means, he was head of the Procurator Fiscal, the Scottish CPS. He was head of it. So he was the equivalent of Keir Starmer for Scotland. And any case that went before a court of extreme severity, as child rape would be, it needed his sanction to get before trial. And he was the main one doing it. And his partner in this, another barrister called Dirty Bob Henderson, he was abusing young boys, and there was indications that Bob Henderson was linked to a rent boy racket where rent boys were killed. So between the two of them, they were doing the most horrific crimes to society's most vulnerable, both girls and boys. Right? They were then abusing kids. A lot of these kids went on to suffer, like your good friend there, suffer terribly in adult life. Right? They have things in common, the survivors. Now, only 10% of those abused go on to abuse, but it's still high. Now, if they then go on to create a set amount of victims, and 10% of them, they reckon an active paedophile can create 1,200 victims in their lifetime through the direct indirect link. So they are the most appalling. Now, then we look at why. Well, these people know each other. We look at society. We've got a thing called wokeism, the loony left, right? Everyone's got to be equal. Well, I'll tell you something. The wokes have got nothing. They've got nothing, right? I'll tell you who the original wokes are: the Satanists and the paedophiles, because they don't care. They don't give a flying toss what colour their victim is. They don't care what gender their victim is. They don't care what religion their victim are, right? And they don't care what socio-economic background their victims come from. They don't even care if they've got a disability. They're what we used to call, they weren't heterosexual, they weren't homosexual, they weren't bisexual, they were trisexual. They will drill anything, and they will.
They would drill anything. There's a picture of, I don't know if it's true, but that's the problem with AI now, John. There's so many pictures coming out from the Epstein files. There's one of Bill Clinton, apparently, holding in his arms. What was that guy's name? That genius mathematician. He was all deformed and that.
Oh, Hawkins.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true. Do you know if that's true or not? I mean, it looked bizarre.
Who knows?
Who wouldn't be surprised? Okay, so do you think Stan was compromised?
I would have thought so, pretty
Yeah,
much so.
yeah,
Right. So take Peter Mandelson. So you
yeah,
go on about the Epstein list. The Epstein list has got nothing,
yeah.
nothing, because all it does is infer, and
Mm.
it never points the finger upwards. It's always pointing the finger downwards. We've got something in this country that was compiled by a professional, not by a pervert that is Jeffrey Epstein. Our version is called the RAINS list.
Mm.
It's an acronym, RAINS, Romeo Alpha India November Sierra. Please Google it,
Mm.
RAINS Satanic List. And if you can't, put in RAINS Alex Thompson, because Alex Thompson is an ex-intelligence officer from GCHQ. He's a linguist. He's an absolute outstanding individual.
He's been on this show quite a few times. I met him up at Hardwick Hall with the guys up there. What an amazing man.
Yeah, top guy, top guy. And and you wouldn't expect it from him because he's
Oh,
a very studious looking guy.
yeah.
The bravery of this man, I mean, he's got a pair on him. He narrated it on YouTube. How it hasn't got 100 million views, I don't know. And what it says on the range list, Dr. Joan Coleman, she was the leading psychotherapist, psychiatrist, psychologist for the biggest mental institution in the United Kingdom, the Maudsley Hospital, where they dealt with the most traumatized of the traumatized. And she dealt with survivors of the most horrific abuse. And they had a thing called DID, they had multiple personality. And mainly were survivors of a thing called SRA, satanic ritual abuse. It's not a myth, it goes on. Joan Coleman, if she was still alive, would be testimony to that. She compiled a list to a journalistic standard. So two or more people independently, without, would have to corroborate each other, and no knowledge of each other. And if they named the same person twice, two people named one person, so two or more, usually three people name someone. She put it on this list, and it's a who's who of our political elite, the hierarchy of our senior police officers, right? There's military personnel on there, right? There's prime ministers' names on there. There's politicians. There's shop workers. There's bricklayers. There's bus drivers. It's everywhere. And this is where it's unique, Justin, because you never get any criminality that covers such a wide swath of society. usually criminality in respect to a uniformed police officer driving about, will just deal with what we call scrotes, the pond life on the housing estates that make everyone's life a misery,
Scrotes,
right?
as in scrotums, yeah.
Scrotes, yeah, we call them scrotes.
Scrotes.
And scrotes, yeah. And you'll find that a big housing estate will have five scroty families that cause misery for everyone. And they'll be attributable to all the dishonest and disorderly crime. So the
So,
violent crimes and the
go,
but
go on.
they keep it to themselves,
Yeah,
right? Pretty much.
yeah.
Whereas people who abuse, they come from every single layer of society, every single layer, and they do it because they are emotionally broken, stunted, emotionally retarded people because of the abuse.
Well, sorry, John, I knew someone who was in Eton, and I knew him very well, and I sort of trusted him. And I can't say it's definitely true, but he said to me, he was in there with Boris Johnson, yeah? And
Yeah,
he said that they all get bummed, right?
yeah.
Right. He didn't actually. He escaped somehow. But what a stat that is for the politicians.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
who else was with Boris in those photos of Boris in his same class?
Yeah, the Bullingdon boys,
You
wasn't it?
know, yeah,
But
yeah.
the same. I know a guy that went to the same school as Johnson,
And
and he
go
said
on.
he was badly. He reckoned Johnson was the most bullied boy he'd ever witnessed in school.
And do you think it was Johnston that had the threesome with Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein?
Yeah, may well have done, maybe
Mm.
because these are emotionally broken. So there's a need. So what we look at again, they're achieving greatness. They are right physically. Some of these are tough guys. They go into Sanders, they go into the military, but they're emotionally broken. You look at the petulance
Mm.
and the spitefulness of these. These are men that are divested from their mother at a
Mm.
very unhealthily young age.
Mm.
They're put into a very, very macho, patriarchal, heavily disciplined, Greco-Roman gladiator school environment where any sign of weakness will result in a thrashing, where they get a thin, rodded stick and they whip them with the full force of a grown man across the buttocks of a 5, 6-year-old boy and told to shut up. And then the older boys are given they're deputized, so the teachers deputize the punishment and the discipline to the teenage boys
Mm.
who have been through what's known as the fagging system.
Mm.
And
How about
teenage
mm.
boys have no
Mm.
reason, they're
Mm.
full of testosterone,
Mm.
they'll get an erection over anything, and they
Mm.
themselves have been abused. So you'll get it, and of course, what happens, they don't just beat them,
Mm.
they have to fiddle with them, bugger them,
Mm.
masturbate them, and everything
Yeah.
else.
How
And then
about
these people let loose into society at the level of captains in the military or
yeah,
CEOs of
yeah.
commerce. These are Peter Mandelson was named in the Rangers as being involved in the murder of a young black kid, right?
Mm.
Right. So don't go telling us that it was an oversight of judgment years later. Well, there's a thing called vetting.
Mm.
I was vetted to the highest possible level because I dealt with top secret information in the job I went for. And I had to tell the vetting unit, the government vetting unit, all my sexual partners, which weren't many anyway, right? So I wasn't a difficult one,
Hey,
right?
good job you on me.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
only joking. No, I've
Yeah,
had a
no,
few, but
but
I'm a good.
but some people struggle with it, right? My financial affairs. So if you're in money troubles, you are prone to corruption, right? And you're prone to stealing because it will be on your mind to steal at a very, very early stage. They even found, right? This is really, really strange fact that big financial corporations in America, especially in New York, they brought in this psychometric testing. They were the first ones to bring it in because they found that an applicant for a well-paid job, right, if they are going to be dishonest and steal, 80% of them, their intention to do so is at interview stage. So they join the job thinking I can nick from them. So they engineer questions to catch them out.
Mm.
So that puts you at risk. But the other thing puts you at risk is your sexuality. And I was told when I went for this job, if you're homosexual, you won't get it
Mm.
because gays fail the vetting because of the propensity for promiscuity, which puts them at greater risk of blackmail. Right? And they check everything. They check your social media and all that. You can't tell me that the military intelligence didn't know of the Rains list when Mandelson was given that job. You can't tell me that. The man had a history of similar sort of allegations against him. You know, they knew what they were doing when they put him in there.
So what happens? What happens to him now, John? It seems to me like that guy in Parliament said to me, they're untouchable. These
Yeah,
people.
I don't think he is untouchable.
No, right,
He's low hanging fruit.
right, yeah,
He's low hanging fruit.
yeah.
I think Andrew. I don't think Andrew will face any sanction at all.
Mm,
I think he'll probably abscond to Bahrain or somewhere like that before anything happens.
mm.
Mandelson's been released on bail. Andrew hasn't. Andrew's been released pending further information.
Oh,
But
but go on, yeah,
they knew about Andrew. They knew about him.
yeah,
They knew. They knew a lot about a lot of these royals. I mean, look, Sarah Ferguson. I mean, I've got to be careful where I go with this because
yeah.
I
No,
don't
for
know
sure,
at what
yeah,
stage I might have to recount this. But
for sure, yeah,
but
yeah.
someone in the police told me about her shenanigans. I'm not going to go into it,
Mm.
but I was also told about their family by their blacksmith who
By the way,
shoot their horses.
I just got to say, I just got to say something to people now, John, because as you were just about something you said before Sarah Ferguson, you cut out completely, yeah, and
Right.
then you came to Sarah Ferguson. I just want to tell people I didn't cut that out for some strange reason. It was boop.
Do you know, they think they're getting away with it,
Mm,
Jason, right? They
mm,
think they're getting away with
mm.
this. But Jesus Christ gave a very stern warning. Anyone who calls in the books of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, anyone who causes the young ones to fall away from me, it is better that they put a millstone around their neck
Yeah,
and jump into the depths of the sea. Now,
yeah,
falling away might not mean abusing, but it's
yeah,
definitely a byproduct of abuse
yeah.
because people that were abused in childhood, they tend to err towards the atheistic because they
Mm.
don't think Jesus Christ was there when they were being abused.
Yeah, because I mean,
Right?
look, Kathy Allen, not Kathy, what's her, Kathy O'Brien, she
Yeah.
came out about things, and they thought she was completely mad, you know, and I don't know Kathy O'Brien. I think David Icke's doing a thing with her now soon. She's going to be speaking at one of his gigs, I think in England, you know. But John, the thing is with this, well, I want to just say this to people. Years ago, there was with pre-internet, there was always they were almost untouchable because they could do almost anything. But now that time lag between when they used to do something and it catch up with them, that's closing now because of
But
the internet. You know.
yeah, the internet, but also the likes of myself, Lenny, and Mike Veal.
Mm.
Who actually, the police can't get away with the cover-ups they once did. They can't.
No,
They didn't count
Mm.
on our popularity, and
no,
especially amongst the criminal classes,
and your
because
ball
never the twain shall meet.
and your
I
balls
can,
and your ball and your balls and courage. They thought you'd be scared off, and no, you've
yeah,
just kept shining the lights on their
yeah,
horrors, shining. Well done, John. It's beautiful.
yeah, and it's changed the whole landscape.
Yeah.
There was a member of parliament, and he was the minister because they've all got ministerial roles, and he was the minister for policing and the fire service, right? And he took up my case. He didn't have to, but he did. He
Mm.
went, right, we're running with this. And he was in a kid's home and
Mm.
he joined the British Army at the age of 16. So he's a right tough nut. And he said, right, we're not having this, John.
Mm.
So he really campaigned for me.
Mm.
And he gets me an audience with the Home Secretary's team, right? At the time, I think the Home Secretary might have been Theresa May, and I think she then morphed into the PM. And I go before a man called Nicholas Hurd, his MP. His dad used to be Douglas Hurd, was quite well known member of Parliament. And it's all recorded for Hansard's, and I'm given the floor, right? The room I'm in is right next door to the Prime Minister's office, right? Right, it was honestly right next door. You could hear them coming and going.
In the belly in the belly of the beast, John.
Yeah. I think the PM might have been Theresa May at the time. I think it might have been Boris.
Theresa May always seemed sort of all right to me. I don't know
No,
if she was. No,
she's top five because I'll tell you for why what happened.
she was on GB News. Wasn't she starting a show on GB News?
Well, they shouldn't have her because
Right.
she hid 114 files that were given to her of child abuse allegations, and it was some of them involving members of Parliament, right? And an MP called Jeffrey Dickens beforehand, he handed some files to Leon Britton, who was a Home Secretary, And Theresa May was Home Secretary at the time, and he lost them files, just like she's done. So she should never, ever be allowed in any position of adjudication over anything to do with child abuse. And if they do, their judgment is way off, Cantor, way off. But anyway, so I then get the floor and I tell them what's happened to me, and this is what's happened, and blah, 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 and the police cover this up, everything else. And there was a member of the Home Office burst into tears and said, I had no idea this went on. Right. And then the Cabinet Minister for Police stood up and said, had I not stood by Jon Wedger, he would not be alive to this day.
Wow. How long was that, John?
2000 and maybe 16, 2015, that time.
Not that long ago, right?
No.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I looked at him, his name was Mike. I said, Mike, is this true? And he went, John, you know damn well that you're walking a very fine line here, mate. Mm. He said, I think you're going to be okay. But anyway, so he had reservations that I might get killed in some bizarre accident, whatever. Anyway, the very next day, I was so grateful for him. I said, I'm so grateful because he was being a real man. He was doing what a man should do. Anyway, the next day, Theresa May sacked him. She sacked him. He did get sacked as an MP, but he was like, then from giving a prestigious role like that, he was minister in charge of pens or something like that, toilet rolls or something. Do you know what I mean? He was then slung right down. And I took a heavy heart with that one because he got punished for standing back. But this is what these maggots do.
What was the thing? Go on.
That's because the currency is the children. It's their dirty little secret. What? Because they've all come from these abused backgrounds, like Eton or even the kids' homes. It's the same thing. You do this to a child, you're going to damage them forever.
What was the thing with? I've got to ask you some questions. I've got people who want me to ask you a few questions on a lighter note in a minute. You know, about finding our strength and our magnificence, because I want to tell people that John's good at that. Right? You help people who are in trouble, psychologically and physically. But what was the thing with Sadiq Khan? I'm just trying to remember what it was now. With you, the Sadiq Khan thing.
What grooming gangs?
Oh, it was grooming gangs. That's right. Yeah.
They just said they didn't exist, and I mean, what a lie.
Absolute.
I mean, the grooming is an algorithm.
Right.
The Pakistanis are the new kids on the block, right? Before them, the East Europeans were doing it. The Lithuanians were doing it. You know, the Albanians, the Kosovans.
Mostly, let's put a little thing in you. And I talk about money a lot, and it doesn't always ethically compromise people, obviously, but money, power, and greed tends to ethically compromise people. I got a feeling if it wasn't for money, a lot of people, there are sexually sort of perverted, sort of horrible, satanic people around, don't get me wrong, but certainly profit and being paid exacerbates that, doesn't it? My God, yeah.
Well, I would be. I mean, if money is your God, then you're worshipping a false idol. I'm not saying that people with money are perverts and people without it are clean, because that's not the case. No. I've known plenty of skimp people that are the most abhorrent individuals on this planet.
Yeah.
But there definitely is a financial incentive.
Yeah.
And in respect to Satanism, a byproduct of that is child pornography, which is worth a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
And in amongst that is the fact that there's huge amounts of blackmail value, and there's lots of deals are brokered over this. The kids are the currency, the commerce is second to that.
Yeah.
You know, and this is what keeps these people going.
Yeah.
And people need to wake up that this is a reality. Whether they believe in Satanism or not, well that's down to you. You'll find out one day. But I'm telling you now, anyone who puts their body part inside a little kid, you are doing the devil's work. You may be an atheist and think you're beyond judgment and you're beyond reproach spiritually, but you're just deluded.
Yeah, and
you will pay. Jesus said that you cause these young ones far, put a millstone around your neck and jump into the depths of the sea.
Yeah, and the other thing, John, is and I'm not advocating physical punishment, but and the death sentence and things, but when it comes to little kids, right? I got a feeling if they were definitely going to get their balls chopped off on the town square, right? I got a feeling there'd be a lot less paedophiles, you know.
Well, let's look at that. In order to satisfy a criminal offence, two elements need to be present. We're going to go into the Latin now. There's two elements. There's a mens reis, right, and the actus reis, bit of Latin. So one is is a mental, the intention. That's the mens rea, a mental intention to commit an offence. And the second one is a physical probability of committing that offence or the actual doing of that offence, right? Because you can have an attempt on it as well. You do both them elements are intact, a criminal offence takes place, right? You cut off a man's scrotum and his testicles, right? He might physically not get an erection, but mentally he will still want to abuse. So
Wow.
you will not quell that. You will not quell that in doing that.
Wow.
I would say that should be 50%. And the other should be the fact that these people need to fully repent for what they do. They need to fully come forward and admit every single crime they're involved in and those that are involved in similar and greater crimes. And they must take part in therapy, which will go a long way in preventative measures, right?
And be quarantined until they can prove
Yeah, and if they don't, then they stay in.
Right.
But I'd say the castration, 50% of it.
Yeah.
And that's that, because at some point these people may be released, and the way it's all down to the Attorney General. If you've got a conservative Attorney General, you're going to have tough on crime, right? When you have a Labour Attorney General, there's certain crimes they won't be tough on. So Labour, because what we're looking at now is quite a Trotskyite socialist regime, because Starmer is a Trotskyite, right? Perpetual revolution, and and that's that, and the state as total governance. So they don't like the state being criticised. So when you get anything to do with people criticising the state or the actions of the state, the Attorney General is given harsh sentencing guidelines for them offences. And when it comes to like the child abuse thing, the Attorney General is pretty much saying, and the CPS, don't even go there, right? Whereas the Conservatives might. So this is that, because when you get an Attorney General, they are politically appointed. So you don't have an Attorney General that will go through the Tories from this and all that. They won't. They will have the sway. But let's get something right. This is not a red and a blue issue, right? There are just as many perverts and old Etonians and Labour as there is in the Tories. Just as many. They should be vetting these people. They should be psychometrically testing these people, and they should be sitting some sort of polygraph test to see if they have a propensity to abuse children.
Absolutely, yeah. Like Matt Letizia said, it's different cheeks on the same arse. Absolutely, everyone should be scrutinised to that point before they have a chance of doing anything in a position of power, John. And are you all right for time for a minute, John? Because there's some questions.
You carry on, man. You carry on.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay. So before we leave that political thing slightly behind, because there's some questions I need to ask you. Because let me make it clear to people straight away where I stand on all this. I was never one of the people saying Trump's going to save us. Trump's our savior. For me, he was always working for Israel, and he's going to get rid of the deep state. But so I want to make that clear. I was never one of those people.
He's not a savior. Yeah.
And I've still got people coming to my shop now saying he's playing 3D chess, Jason. He's taking down the deep state. Man, I don't know.
I get all the time. I get like there was a substation blew up near me, and someone said to me, "That's the Navy SEALs, and they're saving children in an underground tunnel." And
the white hats, yeah, the white hats.
The white hats, yeah. The Navy SEALs have got absolute bugger all jurisdiction in the United Kingdom. I mean, saving thousands of kids. And I mean, another one. This came from an ex-police officer about a container ships coming from China for the children. I went, well, how long will they survive in a container on a boat? Give them a couple of days, they'll be starving, dying, what absolute nonsense. And the fact that Trump is playing this very snaky game, and of course he isn't.
And I got to ask you, John, how compromised do you think Trump is? Is it really
massively? Look, the bloke, he's a multi-billionaire. He's come from that that sort of cutthroat property development thing, in the Bronx and Brooklyn and all that. He's just a liar. He's just in it for himself. He's a businessman. He's ruthless. And if I got a job once when I left the police, I never took it because I went into campaigning. I should have took it really. Train driving, right? Driving a train.
That must be quite nice, actually. Nice and relaxing.
Yeah, and I didn't realise, right, how stringent the tests were. They were unbelievably tough, right? And apparently, it's one of the toughest set of tests you have to do to get any job. It's incredibly tough, right? So, but you've got to be very switched on. You've got to have a good standard of intelligence, good concentration, and you've got to have a fair good degree of fitness initially. I know some of them get a little jump anyway. So that's that. And I'm thinking, and the reason being, you need to be a very, very responsible and balanced man. So if you need, and they take them, if you're in over your 50s, they're a bit reluctant to take you on. So they want people in a good prime age, physically fit, switched on, aware, and responsible. And that's just to have governance for 200 people on a train. Why have we got octogenarians running the most powerful country with the biggest military, with the biggest arsenal of nuclear weapons? Do you know what I mean? With a huge population, and he's in his 80s. It's an absolute nonsense. Why?
Yeah. Well said, John. Well said. He's a freak.
You wouldn't
He's
have
a
an army
freaking.
officer at the age of 80, would you?
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I'm not, because when people start, I say Trump is taking this world down, man. He's going to cause so much chaos. But I want to make it clear to everybody, so would Biden, so would Obama. They're
Of
all
course they would.
the same bloody ilk, you know.
Of course they would.
Yeah, yeah,
It is. But
yeah. Same club, same club.
yeah, I mean, you got. Well, I was met. I met with quite a few politicians to try and sort of forward what I've done, and they promised the world and give nothing, right? Anyway, one guy is going to help me and going to make sure I get this. We're going to summons the commissioner of the police in, and we're going to make sure that they account for this and everything else. And I'm at a meeting in Parliament with this cabinet minister, and as I'm there, there's a tap on the shoulder, right? I look around, is another MP. And he knows me because this guy has helped quite a few whistleblowing coppers, right? This guy was a good friend of Mike Bill's, and he really helped Mike Bill. And he says to me, "How are you, John?" I said, "Hello, mate, how are you?" And he went, "Afterwards, if you fancy it, we're going for a pint." I went, "Yeah, I'd like that." And I thought, well, that's quite nice. A politician invite me out. And I turned around back to his MP, and this cabinet minister went, "Well, if you're friends with him, we're in a meeting because I think the bloke says see you next Tuesday, right?" And the bloke he was on about was Andrew Bridgen. And Andrew Bridgen's one of them. I mean, I think he was the only decent guy by Guy Fawkes that come out of
He's going to
Parliament.
take you for a pint, man. Well, guess what? I'm glad you mentioned Andrew Bridgen because and a lot of people say, "Oh, well, ask Andrew Bridgen about Israel. He never talks about it." Well, the reason I think Andrew Bridgen doesn't talk about Israel is simply because he knows if he does, he's going to be labelled and branded and brandished like I am to be anti-Semitic. But Andrew Bridgen is in Totnes again. I just saw it. It's on what's it all Eventbrite. Andrew Bridgen's here on Saturday. This Saturday. I went to them.
Well, let me
In Totnes, and
well,
yeah, go on. Yeah.
well, let me say anything about the descendants of Andrew Bridgen.
Yep.
He was by the minister who helped me with stuff, but that aside, this man, whenever I call him, he answers. If I ask for something, he does his best to help me, and he is the only one who stood up, rigid for us whistleblowing coppers. He has gone further than he should have ever gone for us coppers. Wow. And I think he's an outstandingly brave, and I think he's a proper leader of men. I really like the guy.
Yeah, and I do. And he's the only one that stood up about the jabs, isn't he? And put his head on the block, and they kicked him out. Wow.
He suffered everything. They ruined his business.
Yeah.
They ruined his wife when he was married. It ruined her business. It really put that poor man through it, and he still carries on. And okay, we're not all perfect, and there's certain things that I won't talk about, but we'll find someone that will then,
Yeah, nice one, John. Nice one. Right, John, I've got to go on to the next thing because I know I can't keep you too long because it goes so quick with you. But a lady said, because you said in one of your things I listened to, there's a mass revival really of people, and I mentioned earlier on to you that so many people that come in my shop in Totnes are admitting to me now. It's almost, I don't like the word great awakening. It's almost like a great remembering. I would call it recovery. So, because when people talk about religion with me, John, I'm a very religious man, but I'm not stuck to one particular religion as such. But I could elaborate with you on that. But I've been helped so much, my gosh, But people come into my shop now and say, "I feel so empty. I feel I feel so desperate. I don't even want to be here anymore. Some people want to kill themselves. So there's that dislocation. And there's almost, John, when people talk about religion with me, I always say the same thing. Look, the word religion comes from the word religare, which means to religament, to retie to what we've lost inside, right? And you could call it God, right? I will say that. We've lost that. And the system's purposely designed to purposely dislocate you from anything higher. You're taught that you're like a tin of Coke, like you're a bubble and then you burst. And if people don't, I'll give you a good example, everybody. I'm going to have a quick rant here, John, and then I'm going to get you back in. I was invited to Gambia by a beautiful black man. He came into my shop. I love him very dearly. And he was telling me what Gambia is beautiful, the fruit. And he said, come, come. He said, beautiful. I said, is there much problems there? Is it frightening to be there? You know, because I was in Cape Town being shot at in the 80s when I married a black lady. I'm not with her now for opening my gob, yeah. That's another story, right? Oh God, that's another whole story. But I said to him, is there much crime there? And I'll never forget what he said, John. He said, very little, very little. And I said, why is that? He said, because most people, I can't do the Gambian accent, most people believe that we are being watched by a higher power, God, if you like, and that's why we're very careful what we do and what we think and what we say, right? So imagine that. If there's an ethical alarm bill, I'm going to come back to you in a minute, John. I'm just going to get this off my chest. Because I know this is a great subject to yours. There's an ethical alarm bell placed in every human being. It's not a coincidence. It's there in everyone. You know what's right and wrong. You know when you do something wrong or think something wrong or treat someone badly. It's placed in there by God, if you like, or nature. Call it what you like, yeah? But it's placed in there. Now, you mentioned a massive revival of that. So I'm feeling now, John, when I speak to people, we've gone so far away from that within ourselves, that connection to whatever you want to call it. You can elaborate that we feel so empty inside. And there's a massive a calling back. It's almost rolling a scroll back up. It's almost like the falconer calling back the falcon, coming home to oneself. And that is a great, very exciting time for me because people have become so empty and they take it from kids in school. So there's a few, I want you to elaborate on that a minute, John, right? And how you feel about that, because I know you and Brian Geddes and other people. People ask me a few questions here. What does John think about the end times prophecies and revelations in the Bible? Because there's people saying to me now, Jason, you've got to leave it, man. It's all happening exactly as it should. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, they're going to blow it up. Then that's the second coming for them. They don't believe in Jesus, blah, blah, blah. And there's the big fight between Muslims and the chosen ones, the Israelis. That's a flavor I wanted to just mention. And what are your thoughts about the horses of the apocalypse, the pestilence, the COVID, the second war, the famine? I'll just read you it all. What do you think of the Gnostic view that so many was deleted from the Jesus story, the time with the Essenes in Egypt, what people can do to do more, the feminine, the Common Assembly of the British Isles, where John Gilbert I've got on the show soon, talking about the corrupt system, that cabby thing that people are coming together. So I'm sorry, I've overwhelmed everybody here by saying all that, John. But where do you feel we are on a global scale, John? And what's your thoughts about how it's all playing out now, mate?
Well, I mean, whatever Thomas' belief is sovereign to them. It's not for me to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
And I'm a what they call born again Christian. I was at one point aligned to the Church of Rome. I come from an Anglo-Italian family, and therefore it was almost a given that I would become a Catholic. And I was brought up a Catholic. I've always loved Jesus. Even as a kid, I used to love the film Jesus of Nazareth at Christmas and all that. And then I ended up working in an area involving humanity, and I've seen the dregs of society. I've come up against evil, but I've also seen miracles. And myself, I was looking at prison. I was looking at losing my home, and in amongst, I mean, my testimony it would go on far too long. But in amongst my dark times, my son was involved in a life-threatening, life-changing accident in which he suffered a terrible injury. His spinal column was severed by 96% at the top vertebrae. He went into coma and he was pronounced dead after 10 minutes of going into sepsis and cardiac arrest. He was placed onto a full 100% life support for a maximum period of 5 days, and then that was it. He was classed as brain dead and damaged. And I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, and after 3 days, he woke up, and he ended up 2 weeks later walking out of the hospital. He was paralysed beyond repair from the eyes downwards, and he was brain dead. He's now a manager of a company, you know. And I put that solely down, and all the cases against me were dropped, everything down to the intervention of Jesus. I turned my back on the Church of Rome, and I become what's called a born again Christian, and I worship the man that is Jesus Christ. I don't worship the church. I don't worship the Church of Rome, the Protestant, nothing like that. I'm not aligned to any of that. I now do what I can, taking people to Jesus. For me, it is Jesus. Now, when you're saying about
You baptize people and everything now, don't you? Yeah.
yeah, and I've taken people that have committed some terrible crimes, you know, to Jesus. I took one guy whose nickname is the devil, a gangster called Stephen French, very well documented, very well known man, who has had a horrendous life of extreme violence and high level criminality. And he asked me if I could arrange for him to be baptized, and that took place a couple of months ago. And I saw that as just an incredible thing. I was baptized in the sea by a guy who stood trial for murder twice, a very, very dangerous ex-gangster from Scotland, and turned his life around, and that's that. So that's the irony of it all. But when you're saying about the accountability and the thing in the Gambia, well, you know, of course that is your conscience saying you shouldn't do that, and that is knowing you will face a judgment for doing things that you know are wrong. However, one thing that will take that away will be socialism and communism. They will strip you of that because there will be no deity worship. The state, and when you look at the atrocities that went on, especially in the prison system, you know, in the days of Stalin and everything else, the mindset of the prison wardens and the police officers was one of communism, that they will not face judgment because they do not believe in a deity. So they became their own gods, and they realised as long as they justify it in this Darwinistic mindset, that they can do what they want. And they ended up doing the most terrible, terrible things to people because they knew there was no comeback. There was no one watching them. But we know that it's a lie, because there are things, there is a spirituality out there, things happen in life that you can't account for. And if that's never happened to you, well, that's not your reality, but it was definitely my reality. Now, the problem also is that people, if I go back to the mindset of someone who's abused and they say, oh, I don't believe in Jesus, where was he when I was being abused? Well, it wasn't Jesus that did this. It was evil that did this, and it was the influence of evil. And it was broken, hurt, damaged, vengeful people that did this, perverted people that had opened themselves up, not only to their hatred and their anger, but also to the dark spiritual influences. Because the devil's job is to destroy mankind, and he can only do that really effectively by destroying children. And if you destroy children, you will destroy society. With so many broken people out there now, people have turned their back on God, right? Atheism is running high. There is no prayers in schools. There is no worship of a deity. We are seeing, especially in respect to transgenderism and things like that, you've got this anti-God approach to things. Well, they won't be having children, right? Our birth rate is plummeting to such an appalling degree, it's not salvageable. We're reliant on migrants to keep kids in the school because our people aren't having school. Now, there's many reasons for that. One will be, you know, financial restraints and everything else, you know, another argument. But the other thing is people don't want kids. Mm-hmm. They see kids as a burden. When you look at a lot of these sitcoms, they're very anti-children. You look at things like The Big Bang Theory, these comedic nonsense that they're feeding our children, and they're seeing kids as a nuisance and a thing to hate because they're going to ruin your life, they'll ruin your figure, they'll stop you doing what you're doing. So we're becoming anti-children. And people, when they want some sort of consolation, right, they can turn to whatever's available. Now, I was talking to a guy the other day, he's a convert from Islam to Christianity. And I was saying, the thing you find with people when they're in trouble, like a drowning man, they'll take any line thrown to them. And he turned around to me and he said, John, in Turkey, we have a saying, a drowning man will grab anything. He'll even grab a snake thinking it's a rope. I said, well, I said, that's brilliant because that's exactly the same. So, and a Satanist called me up once and he called me up to thank me for what I do in trying to protect children and spread the word and that. He's a Satanist, he's an active Satanist. And I said, but what, why? Why are you worshipping this God? And he said, well, I want revenge. I want revenge. The courts aren't giving revenge. They're allowing the paedophiles to do what they want. Right? They're not getting caught. Your Jesus isn't stopping them. He's not hitting them with a bolt of lightning. I understand, but I don't agree, you know? And then he read out to me the manifesto for the Church of Satan. And it was the most benevolent thing you've ever heard. If it was a political party, everyone would vote for him. We're in balance with nature. We're against repression. We're against bullying. And on and on and on it went. And the last,
Sorry, John, Mark Passio was in the Church of Satan, wasn't he? You heard of Mark Passio?
oh yeah,
And Mark turned to the other side, and so he knows what went on in there and what they say.
yeah.
Go on, yeah.
But the last bit is that you are your own God.
Mm.
So you are yourself. You're centric to yourself, you know, and that's where the little click. And remember, the devil is a liar.
And
You
sorry,
know?
John, sorry to jump in because this same lady asked me to ask you this, so it's probably a poignant time to ask you that you know Jesus. Let's say somebody say, "Oh, he wasn't here." A young person said to me not long ago. They said, "You know, how long ago was Jesus here?" And I said, "Oh God, you know, 2000 and so supposedly." I don't know, right? But John, just for the argument's sake, and they said to me, "Well, gosh," they said, "if people were to live to 100 years old, which they don't mostly, but they said, let's round it off, yeah." That means it was only 20 lifetimes
Yeah.
ago
Well,
that
not only
Jesus was
that,
here. It's like not long
look,
ago, is it?
Jason, look, have you been in Parliament Square?
Yeah.
Like, go in Parliament Square, look at the House of Parliament in front of you. To your right is Westminster Abbey, right?
Yeah.
That's 1,000 years old.
It's amazing.
So when that was being built, being built, and to where we are now, that was the same thing. So the people building it, Jesus was alive.
There was 10 lifetimes, 10 people's lifetimes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
it's not that far away.
Yeah, so this is what the reason I framed that around that, John, to just mention it to you was because someone said to me, "Ask John," you know, because we do. I know this an amazing. I've been touched. So I won't go on to it here, but I've been touched. Like David Icke has been literally on his back, and something came into David, you know, and I don't know. David might call it something else. I don't know, but I'll speak to David about it. But I've been touched and blessed. I mean, I can't tell you it's in a most amazing way. But she said to ask you what you think, because John, apparently Jesus said, "You can do what I can do and much more." He was trying
And
to,
he said, "Yeah, you will do greater than me."
yeah, he was trying to train people or
Yeah,
remind people that they've got amazing, miraculous gifts shining through them. Now, this system we live in, they do everything to take that
of course they do.
possibility away. So I try and remind people of that, and yourself also.
And you know why that happens? Because there was a rebellion.
Right.
There was a rebellion once,
Mm.
right? And there was an archangel called Lucifer, and he rebelled against Christ, and he convinced a third of the most intelligent beings ever, the angelic realms, to follow him, and he was cast out down to the earth. The devil is the prince of this earth. You vibe to his beat, you're going to do very, very well. Thank you very much.
Right, and that's what I said to you at the beginning of this thing.
Yeah.
You know, I don't get paid anything for this. I sometimes say to people, donate on Patreon or something. But it's like, you know, if you're selling bombs, doing drugs, and paedophilia, the money will rain from the sky. So,
Right. Well, let me tell you something. Right, my journey it's still going out. Weird things are happening to me at the moment, and I know it's being a calling. Probably into ministry in Christ. I think maybe one day I'll have my own.
your own ministry, your own church.
That's how I think I've given up alcohol now. I'm changing by the minute.
Mm.
But my son, the one who was dead, who's now not, right? He said to me last year, "Do you want to come to his little daughter's sports day?" right? And I went, yeah, of course I'll come, definitely come, right? Anyway, she's running in a couple of races, and she's like him. He was a professional athlete. He was a semi-professional rugby player. He's very, very good. Anyway, before he's like got crippled and whatever. Anyway, so she's in this race. She's only 6, 7 years old or something like that. Anyway, she wins it. She's like a little bullet. And when she finishes, her and her little chums are high-fiving and hugging each other, and they're like, and there's a noise. My son hears a noise. He looks around, and I'm actually on my knees on the floor crying. My legs can't support me, and I'm crying. Right? And he went, Dad, what's going on? What's the matter? And I went, son, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, it's good, it's not bad, it's good. But I'm beyond consoling. I'm crying and I'm crying. I want to tell you another thing that went on of that. And I said, look, I'm going to go to the coffee shop. When you're finished, they go back, come and see me. I will explain. I'm really, really sorry. And I was an embarrassment to him, And he came over, he said, so what was it? And do you know,
That's your dad crying on his knees, yeah.
Yeah. And do you know what it was? I saw a thing. God showed me a thing, and it was a thing called innocence. And the power of that innocence was so pure, it brought me to my knees. Beautiful. It was beautiful. It was powerful, and it was innocent. Now, this is what these dogs want to take away. They want to strip these children of innocence. And these people that are imparting their gender studies and that on primary school children, they're going to rot in hell. The day they shut their eyes for the last time, the devil's waiting for them. And I know they don't believe in it, but they're going to find out the actions of what they've done.
Beautiful.
They are taking the innocence away from them beautiful little souls.
Beautiful, John. Well, something I did. I probably made the great mistake of running as candidate for the Blooming Heritage Party, right? Oh, I love him. What's his name? Oh God, David Curtin. He's doing great work. He's like doing God's work in a way.
Is he a black guy?
The black guy, yeah. He was.
I met him. I don't know where I met him.
The London March. You met him because he was by us when we were there.
Yeah, I met him. Yeah.
Well, John, I like David. So I foolishly, if you like, because I'm like a political atheist. Really, I thought I'll never do that. Next minute, my name's on posters going around Totnes through 5,000 doors. And I got in all sorts of problems about that. But anyway, look, they convinced me to do it, and I wanted to do the right thing because I want the right thing. One of the things from the manifesto I put on my leaflet was, you must not go to kids' schools and all this and that. And I had a big sort of a trans guy came in. I'm his friend now. He came in and said it's disgraceful what you're doing. I said, look, I love you, right? I love you. I said, I love you.
Well
it's your spacesuit. I don't care what you do with it. It's your God's suit you're wearing.
Yeah,
I said, but when it comes to going into schools and giving kids ideas they never ever have, unless you said that to them, I'll die for that cause.
Yeah, right? Yeah, don't take their innocence.
Don't take their innocence away. You dare go to the children and tell them they can cut their balls off and they can be a kid, a woman, and a man. They never a bloody thing of that. John. So
I would make the age of consent 24. I would.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I would. Now I'll give you a story of the power of all this. So I was on Scotland Yard's elite vice unit, and we were plainclothes unit, mixture of constables and detectives, and we'd go onto the street and we'd basically take the war to the pimps and the drug dealers and the prostitutes and all that. And it was, and a lot of these people had HIV, AIDS, schizophrenia, mental health problems, violent crack addiction, heroin addiction. It was mad. It was like something out of, the old New York cop scenes back in the 80s. It was Wild West, honestly. It was madness. Proper madness, but it was highly addictive and very sort of entertaining at the time.
Okay, yeah.
And in the West End and the really violent King's Cross area back then, it was a front line. So the front line was all the drug dealing, no-go areas for the police, and there was a pimp, and he was the king of the pimps. And his name, and I'm going to name him because I don't think he will mind this. His name was Tommy Jitterbug, right? It's a Ghanaian surname. And he was
listen. Hey, Tommy, if you're listening, I don't know you, but he said it, not me.
Yeah. Tommy, come on the show because his story is.
Is it? Oh, there's
if you Google him, Jitterbug. Anyway, we used to call him Tommy Jitterbug. They saw him, but he looked like something out of 70s Harlem.
Yeah,
he looked, like Huggy Bear, like a pimp and all
this.
Oh,
wow.
But by this time, he'd gone into heavy drug use, big, strong, powerful mixed race guy, teeth knocked out and all that crack, heroin, dangerous. And he had AIDS
Wow.
and he was violent and he would attack police and he would try and bite you. And one day I went into a crack house and you had to go through a little bit, a broken door in there. And it was in darkness and it's where people would just shoot up and that. The street prostitutes were going in there. They'd been using the floor as a toilet. So it was human feces, urine, need on the floor. There were people gouged out. They could have been dead for all I know, right? Anyway, we've gone in and he's there and it's gone off, right? Bang. Big fight. Rolling around. He's trying to bite me, give me AIDS. Rolling in human excrement, right? With needles. Man, this was, honestly, it was raw as you come. And I said to him, we always win, right? Anyway, I said to him, the only good thing anyone will ever do is put one straight in your head. Put a 9mm bang straight in your head. I said, you're a plague to humanity. And he was, right? Anyway, this many years, I go through what I go through. And I go to a fantastic church run by an ex-doorman, right, in the East End of London. And this guy, big black guy, he's about 6'7" or something, and he runs a church, and he's awesome. An awesome guy. His name's Ez. He become a very close friend to me, Ez. Anyway, we're sort of chatting away, and he's going, one guy's going to give a testimony. He's out in Africa now, and he used to be a cracker pimp, and he mentioned his name. I was like, I think I know that guy. Anyway, that night, there's news at 10 come on, and they go on the streets of Johannesburg, and they go, reformed criminal, now born-again Christian missionary, pastor, Tommy Jitterbug. He's a pastor.
Wow.
But he was dying of AIDS when I knew him 10 years ago.
So he's in South Africa?
Yeah. And he goes in with the gangs and he stops the gang violence and he goes where the coppers won't go and he goes out there anyway. I get his number and I call him up. And I said, lend a message. I said, please, can you call me back? He calls me back and I'm on my lunch break from work. I was working with autistic kids at the time. I left the place and I'm walking back and it's just a sunny day, and he rings, and he said, "Is that John? This is Tommy." I was like, "Oh wow!" I said, "Listen, you don't know me, but I know you." And I started recounting the incident. He was like, "I think I recall it." He said, "John, I was a bad man back then." He said, "I was so bad." He said, "Look, I'm born again Christian. I've changed my life around." He said, "It's a long story, but he tried to kill himself, and God appeared and said, you've got a job to do." And he went to inject himself with sewer water and heroin to kill himself. And no matter how much he put in, he wouldn't die. Anyway.
Hey, sounds a bit like my life. Well, yeah, whenever I've done terrible things to myself and I'm still here, so I must have a mission,
Yeah, you've got a plan, haven't you? Well, you're doing it, haven't you? But he goes for a blood test. They can't find any trace of HIV or AIDS. Anyway, he ends up out there, and we're having this chat, and he's telling me his story, and I said, I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I thought, there was no way this is the same guy. He went, John, I've turned my life around. And he said to me, I'm getting it from the Holy Spirit. How are your children? I went, well, to be honest, I've had a rough ride of it, with a couple of kids, especially one of them. And he went, why don't we pray for your son now? And as he did that, the heavens opened and it was like a cloud above me and rain poured on me. It was pouring on me, right? I got soaking wet and he's praying for the health of my children. I'm soaking wet. I felt my knees and I'm uncontrollably crying. And I don't really cry. I can't stop crying. He goes, you're right. I said, I can't believe this. I cannot believe this situation. There's a man at one point tried to kill me and now you're praying for the health of my kids. I said, firstly, the power of Jesus Christ in doing it. And secondly, God has a sense of humour. He really does have a sense of humour.
Go on, listen. Go on. Listen, that's a beautiful story. I'm just aware of the time because God, I could talk to you all night. And on that note, I'm not going to say goodbye just yet, but I want to say this, John. what you just said about that story, I've got some awful stories about my life. Believe me, I've done all sorts of things. But just to remind someone about that, there was a guy. I'm from Barry, South Wales, and we did awful things when we were young. My cousin spoke to a guy. I won't say his name on you, but he said, "Oh, you're not related to Jason the Assatus, are you?" And he said, "He's my cousin." And he said, "Is he still alive?" Right? I bloody am still alive, thanks, mate. Because he knew the drugs we were doing. I mean, I was still getting nosebleeds to this day from the terrible things we did to ourselves. I don't know how I'm in my spacesuit, but there's one thing for sure, John. When I wake up in the morning, and I want to brush this past you before we go now, right? When I wake up in the morning, John, right? I wake up and it's like I know I'm here to try and somehow talk about a better world for humanity. Yeah. I
Yeah,
wanted I
okay.
wanted to be a priest for years, John, right? And I couldn't be because I knew it might limit what I had to say, right?
Yeah.
But I wanted to be a priest. I used to go to hospitals where people were dying. I used to go to people that were suffering. It still happens to me now. I want to be where people are suffering and dying. So to you, John, I mean, my gosh, I'm so glad you're saying you're getting that call and to start some kind of ministry or something, or have some kind of church or some kind of new religion where people can come and because honestly, I think people are so desperate now and so empty and so dislocated. We need a great remembering, a great relocation from our dislocation, and we want to come home. We all feel that emptiness and despair. And I'll say this before I stop gobbing off: that emptiness and despair and what's the word from it? Or that desperation that we feel, that pointlessness. That's the word I was looking for. That we all feel. We all feel it without exception. It's the greatest secret, John. The most people feel that they don't
Yeah,
talk about
well,
it.
well,
That's
well,
what
well,
keeps it going.
yeah, and then
But just one quick thing, John. Sorry, that pointlessness is not pointless. You know why? Because that's the very thing that brings you back towards yourself and towards God or whatever. Sorry, John. Go on. Go on.
well, the thing is, it's really funny because your timeline was that you was going to help people,
Yeah.
and the devil knew it,
Yeah.
so he wanted to get the first punch in and shove whatever he could up your nose and whatever. But you have come home, and we're all going to take our last breath, every one of us.
Yeah.
Now I want to know that I did everything I could to expose this child abuse stuff. And that's that, and they know what they're doing. They can do what they want to me, right? I'm not frightened of them. There are things I'm frightened of, but I'm not frightened of them. And if they can't, they'll get for kids. When we look into this darkness, it's veiled in a curse. There is a supernatural side to this world. There are these disembodied entities that are pure malevolent, and they just want to dirty everything because it shines innocence. They want to ruin it. They want to crush it. Even if you go for a walk and you look at an oak leaf and it's perfect, you can't better it. And then it's perfect for its job. Everything is absolute perfection because it's built by Christ.
Yeah.
It doesn't need bettering. And we are perfect. We are brilliant and beautiful.
Yeah.
And what we are, we are.
And
But
where do
they
you
have to ruin it.
And before we go, John, because and when I click off, I just need to say something to you off camera before we go, if you may. Just take me 2 seconds, right? So don't. I'll close it down and then I'll still be able to speak to you. But I just want to say this, John. Where do you see us now? Then on that basis, I mentioned earlier on about the great battle that's taking place.
Oh,
Really,
it's going to happen, isn't it?
where do you think we
But
are at the
listen,
moment?
there's a saying by Edmund Burke: in order for the triumph of evil, it takes but for good people to do nothing.
Mm.
Now, at the risk of going into the religious, right? Doing nothing and saying God has already won this fight is laziness, right? We can't sit back and allow this to go on. What they've done to us is make us feel insignificant and make us hand our power over to these perverts and these freaks and these idiots. And that's what we've done. We've handed our power over. And what we've got to do is basically take it back and say, no, not in my name. Is this? You are not doing this in my name. Look, there was a very interesting documentary called the Berlin to Baghdad Railway, right? And it was all about a railway line the Germans built that went from Berlin to Baghdad, and they teamed up with the Ottomans, and it was just before the First World War. And the British knew that once that was completed, right, the Germans would have access to oil and wouldn't need coal. And Britain's empire and industry was run on coal. It was dirty, it was lazy, and it was gutsy, you know. Right. So Winston Churchill, who was Admiral of the Fleet or whatever he was at the time, ordered the railway line to be blown up because it would have linked the oil fields in Kirkuk in Iraq with Berlin. And this was before the First World War. Right. No one, they think it's a shooting of Franz Ferdinand, you know, out in Serbia or wherever it was. It's a lie. It was nothing to do with that. The British Army sent in the Dorset Regiment, the 1st Battalion Dorset Regiment, to blow up the railway line. They deleted all their records of Dorset Regiment, right? You know, they're only doing now, right, what Churchill and his cohorts tried to do before the First World War. And it is just a grab. They're blowing up because China's already built, you know, the Silk Route train lines in. They're building 6,000 kilometres a year. We can't even build 6 in this country. It's there. Once they cross over, they won't need the freight line, the Straits of Hormuz. It'll be like, boom. It's a lie. And it's convenient that I don't think the war followed the Epstein list, right? I think they were going to do that anyway.
Yeah.
And they decided to release that Epstein list because they know they were going in.
Yeah.
And then, you know, what's worse, a punch in the head or a kick in the nuts? You know, and I mentioned this. I was on one of the mainstream news channels, and they said, well, what do you think will happen yesterday? And I said, well, nothing. They're not going to give us. They're giving scraps from the table. And I said, victims and survivors have got 2 weeks to a month to flood. I kept pleading with them, flood the system with your allegations if you've not made them. The police will do nothing, but it doesn't matter. It's a matter of record that you can FOI later and you can evidence it because it's in our system. It's all about proof, not truth.
Yeah.
Right, flood it. Come forward. Don't be silent. Let's have the 80% speaking instead of the 20%. Right?
Yeah.
Do it. And then we can bring about change. And
Yeah.
we can say that child protection is a number one thing. But once something goes kaboom, you won't even make back page. 3 weeks later, they started this bombing campaign. And they've missed the boat now. They've missed the boat.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm not saying give up and don't give up, but
Yeah.
we had this, and of course, I was all over the mainstream news, in the papers, because what I was saying 20 years ago, 10 years out of the police, 20 within it, was that the grooming gangs isn't just these Pakistanis, and it goes into the elite realm, like we saw with the Etonians that we both spoke to. That is grooming, that is trafficking, that is rape. The same thing. They've all been doing it.
Yeah.
Miles before the Kashmiris came over and had a go at it. That's just political. That's just a promotion of Islam. And that, of course, there's a cover up there and you know, and a reluctance for police to do anything. But they've had a reluctance to do something when the MPs were involved.
Yeah.
You know, when Leon Britton was mentioned and the head of the intelligence services was mentioned, they've always done it. And of course, like David and like Brian Garish, we weren't proved wrong. We were proved right.
Right.
So we had this meteoric sort of rise to sort of fame, and you know, slapping my name all over the place. Jon Wedger said this, Jon Wedger said that, which I was, and it ain't about me. I don't care if they mention me. I don't care if they don't. But it's done now. You know, we're now thinking, how are we going to heat our homes? How are we going to drive to work? Because that oil is going to go up and up and up and up and up. You know.
Do you think they're purposely crashing the system, John, to bring in the digital AI and the slavery, cashless slavery?
Of course.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as big as they make out. I think they're making out it's all inclusive.
Yeah.
And it's just got people just to say, do you know what, stuff it, and it will start climbing down again. You know, and they've done it with these low emission neighbourhoods. People have said, you know what, bollocks, I'm not, and they're crashing now.
Yeah.
And they're not legal. So I think with the AI thing, as long as people don't comply, we should get through that. All right. But what we're going to see,
or it'll force us to create our own systems, John.
Yeah, maybe. But what we're going to see is that I work with a lot of offenders, and the majority of them are black lads and Muslim lads.
Yeah.
And the rise in anti-Semitism is going through the roof.
Yeah.
the Jewish community are going to start getting attacked,
Yeah.
right? The Muslims may well then, well, they'll go against them, but they may then start going against the Christians as well. And
Mm.
when I talk to the Muslim boys, I say, would you fight for this nation? You know, like the New Zealanders and the Maoris were happy to fight for the UK, even though what went on, and the East African regiments, even though they were treated badly. And they went, no, screw you lot. You give me a gun, I'm shooting you lot. I hate you lot for what you've done. And they've got a hatred, and they've got no cultural alignment to us. And
Mm.
even the black lads, when I talk to them, they see themselves, even though they're fifth generation Caribbean, they see themselves still as Jamaican or Trinidadian. They don't see themselves as British. They've
Mm.
got no cultural alignment to us,
Mm.
and so it's so broken,
Mm.
you know. And I can't see that being repaired. And I think the war will be here.
Mm.
We will have a war here, and it will be a terrorist war, and it will be a partisan thing, and you know, and it'll be divided on many levels. You know, they'll be fighting against the Jews, and then they'll be fighting against the Christians, and then, you know, and it looks like Starmer will be siding with them more, rather than the indigenous people. And I
Well,
think what I'm seeing is Starmer sees now that he's got a leaning more towards China than he has America.
mm.
You know, so we may see that socialism then morphing into Trotskyism and maybe communism quite quickly.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. That seems to be the case, you know. It's a fascinating thing, man. I could speak to you about it all night. But one final thing before we go, John. Because I always say to people, talking about that strength within and stuff. Finally, I want to get you just give some people advice before you go, right? And I've just realized I can't turn it off without turning you off. So
Okay.
I'll ring you tomorrow, or something, or I'll
Yeah,
message.
yeah, yeah. No worries.
But John, one thing, because I've often said, when you see fork lightning going through the sky, it looks random, but it's not random. It's taking the path of least resistance, right?
Yeah,
And unless people have got some sort of strength and protection around themselves, right? Then it's almost like the evil lightning will find them, right, and compromise them. So I want to ask you about a little bit of advice for people how they can keep their strength. But one thing I want to touch on that you said that I wanted to jump in on when you said people have got to take responsibility, because I talk a lot about feedback loops and consequences from previous decisions made with or without vision and wisdom, John. And what we decide now is creating the future. We're all the midwives of the future, right? So even if you're not doing anything, everybody, and not taking responsibility, you're still creating the future, right? But before we go, John, just a quick thing for people who are feeling desperate inside, who are feeling like, what am I going to do? I feel so helpless. I feel so weak. Give them just a couple of words.
well, I want to say that people that have been emotionally broken,
Mm.
whatever was done to you, you never had a choice in this.
Mm.
They did it to you. You was young, you was vulnerable,
But
and they.
you're talking about the government and the system as well as being abused as a child, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
the whole
well,
thing.
yeah, well, maybe way you see it,
Yeah,
but what I'm saying is, don't carry that shame. It's not for you to carry.
it's not your
Those that
fault.
did it there, and things are changing now,
Mm.
right? And know that you are loved, and
Mm.
your life has meaning. It is precious. Your life. There is not enough gold in Dubai. There is not enough land wherever. There are not enough Rolls Royces to equate for the value that God has for your life. It is the most magnificent thing you have. And again, children, they are the best gift you will ever have. There's
Mm.
only two things you need to bring up children: time and love. And we've got that. Time and love. And it's that, and this may sound a little bit radical, but I want to actually give advice now to paedophiles and say, stop it. It was done to you. And when they say they have no empathy, they do have empathy
Mm.
because it was done to them. They know that pain. They know that fear. They know the destruction and the worthlessness and them suicidal tendencies. They know. But what they don't have is the sympathy or the compassion.
Mm.
And I say to them, you will take your last breath one day. It's better you repent now before it's too late. Because now is nothing. Later is eternity.
Yeah.
Take it from someone. Take a little bit of wisdom. You might not have a father to give you wisdom, but I'm giving it to you. Repent now. Stop doing it and tell the police what you've done and grass up those that have done it. And I want to call out to the Satanists. And I want to say, you may be hurt. You may be after revenge. But what you're worshipping is a lie. The devil is a liar. He speaks a language of deception and of lies. Do not go to him. if you want to go somewhere, go to life. And for me, life is Jesus Christ, right? And he loves you. God loves you. And he does. He loves us all. And our lives are, we are going to see things happen. We're going to get some tough times maybe, but it will pass. It will. We've just got to keep going. We've got to ride through this storm and it will pass, you know?
Beautiful
And
words.
and it,
Beautiful.
and it is, it's bright. Don't, you know, it's bright. We all get down, but
Yeah,
you know, them clouds do lift, you know, and the
beautiful,
next
John.
day. And if anyone wants to do anything,
Mm.
go cold water swimming.
No, absolutely. I'm one
I'm
of those
telling you
people.
now, there is
Oh,
nothing better.
John, listen, I've seen you doing it, and there's one thing for sure. If someone came to me and said, "I'm so depressed, I can't stand it another moment. What can I do?" I'd say, "Meet me by the river at 6 o'clock,"
Yeah.
and you could push him in, and they'd be. I'd say, "Oh, are you still depressed?" They'd go, "What? What? What? You
Yeah.
can't be melancholy and depressed in freezing
No,
water.
no,
It's
no.
impossible."
It's really weird. What it
And
does,
it's like
right?
it's like a baptism, isn't it?
Yeah.
It shakes off all your dirtiness, you know?
Well, what it does, it raises the endorphins to an incredible level. The
Yeah.
adrenaline goes through the roof. But when you're swimming in cold water, whatever's on your mind, paying a mortgage or maybe going to prison, whatever, it has to go because your mind has to keep you alive.
Yeah.
So you're in a state of absolute self-preservation, and all of a sudden, them thoughts are gone, and
Mm.
they have, and all of a sudden, you get hit with the endorphins, and before you know it, within 5 minutes in, you're high.
Mm.
And that high will last a whole day, maybe 2 days, before them bad thoughts come back, and then
Yeah.
just get in again, and it just kicks them straight out of bed.
It does. It's almost like being a tea bag dipped in God.
Yeah, it is. It
You know what I
is.
mean?
Yeah, yeah. I remember I went to a lake. I do pants swimming, right? There's none of these little neoprene seats for me. I
Oh
just go,
no, I'm the same. In.
yeah, yeah, in my pants, bang. And I turned up, I think it was January or something, to this quarry that I go to. And there was two guys putting on these neoprene suits and they were doing an Ironman thing. And that one was going to jump in. I went, no, don't jump in. Just follow me, going slowly. He went, well, where's your suit? I went, I'll do it in my pants. He went, you mad? I went, no, 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 no. I said, come with me. I'll take you through it. Get in. And as you're getting in, you just tell yourself, this is the Mediterranean. It's hot. This is beautiful. And I said, come with me. And I'm going in and said, look, it's good. Get your shoulders under. It's the Mediterranean. And I said, this guy, are you doing it? He went, I am, but my willy really hurts.
My balls are gonna fall off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it really hurts.
Well, do you know,
Yeah,
John? People say to me, "Christ, isn't it a shock?" I'd say, "That's why
yeah,
I go. I go for the shock
yeah.
because it shocks everything off you, you know."
Everything.
So, John, look, I want to also ask you before we go, where can people get hold of you? I want you to start this ministry because I'm going to come and see your church, yeah. But where can people get hold of you, or what happens
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that?
I mean, just go. There is a website, I think, but a guy does it for me. A guy called Johnny runs my website.
Yeah,
Um, it's called the Freedom Platform. Just Jon Wedger, the Freedom Platform. I think I don't tend to look on it too much,
yeah,
but it is good what he's done. He puts my videos.
yeah,
I'm on YouTube.
yeah. So I'll put the
Uh,
links under the show, see? Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I'm on YouTube.
yeah,
I'm on Facebook, so
yeah,
you can go onto Facebook and get me
yeah.
through Messenger.
Oh, that's
And
good.
my email address is Jon Wedger Foundation, all one word, at gmail.com. So you can get me through there.
I'll put that underneath you, and that's a wonderful thing for people to be able to reach out to, John. Because John, I want to say thanks. I'm so glad we've met at last. I did see you in London, and I'll leave you with this. There's an old saying, right? Ralph Waldo Emerson said it. He said, "If we are related, we shall meet." So I'm glad we have. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
want to
no,
say,
thank
I want to
you.
say, I love you, John. I love you for being you. There's God shining right out of you, and thank God for people like you. Thank God.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a journey, but would I have any other way? No, because that was my journey. That was my journey. But I'll leave you with this. That I've always been poor, and I've always been skint, one wage, 4 kids, and mortgage, and everything else. And I used to investigate organised crime, and I was quite good at it. In fact, a bit too good at it. So the Turkish mafia decided to have me shot. Right, so they put up a contract for 40 grand.
I
To,
nearly got. I've been shot, almost shot in 2 countries, but that's another story. Go
yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah. The Turkish mafia put out a contract to shoot me, but but they decided one last attempt to sort of not shoot me and come to some agreement. So they gave me £80,000 and said, "John, leave us alone. We know you need the money." And they said, and I just gave it back to them. I went, "No, you can have it back." And they went, "Why don't you want it?" I said, "Because there's nothing you have I want." And I said, "I'm seriously, there is nothing you have I want. I don't care. I don't care for nothing. I don't care for flash suits. I don't care for. It means absolutely nothing to me. That's it. You know, my enjoyment is the cold water swimming, the family, the kids, and the work I do. I get on that, and I like getting my collie and going for a walk. You know, I love it. I just love it, and it's free. It don't cost anything. You know. So
Brilliant, John.
yeah,
John, listen, I've loved speaking to you, and we'll speak again, I'm sure. Thanks for being you, mate. I'm not joking. I'm just going to switch off. I've got to have a quick rant and tell people
yeah,
where to
yeah,
find
and I will forward it on
Yeah,
YouTube
yeah,
and you know and boost the work and
yeah,
everything else. But you know, thank you so much for the platform. I really I think it's been brilliant,
yeah.
and thank you to Bill Maloney, thank you to Brian Gerrish
Oh,
because you're
God, yeah. David Icke,
yeah yeah
Maloney, Brian Geddes, all these wonderful people,
yeah
and the torchbearers, John, like you, the torchbearers.
yeah, and I just wanted to tell people stop criticising. You know,
Oh, yes, stop it, man. I get people coming to my show. They're on the other side. David Icke's on the other side. It's like, what are you, who do you, hell do you think you are? It's unbelievable,
yeah
John,
yeah
what people
yeah.
say. Everyone's on the other side. They're shills.
Who,
I don't even know
who,
what shill
who's that?
means.
Who's that comedian who says?
Hey, John, someone said to someone in this was Totnes, I was working for bloody Israel. It's like, oh, shut up.
It's mental, isn't it?
Go on, what were we saying? The someone.
There's a comedian, and he goes on about it, and he says, "Look, I hate." He's talking to someone, and they hated someone, an actor or something like that, and he went, "Well, if you're going to hate properly. There's Tony Blair, there's people like that. If you're going to hate properly, you know."
Bloody
So
fuck.
donate me, donate Brian, donate David. I hate properly. There's enough
Hate,
horrible people to hate.
hate the bad guys, yeah.
Yeah, hate the bad guys. Leave the
Dead
good
right.
ones alone. You know.
Oh man. Listen, John, God bless you, mate. I'll put all the links under the show and we'll meet again, I'm sure. And thanks for everything. Thanks for
Yeah,
being
I'm
you,
always
John.
here, and thank you so much for the platform.
Oh,
Everything's an opportunity, and I relish it.
great to speak to you, man. Love you,
Cheers.
John.
All
Thanks so
right.
much.
Adios. Bye
Take
bye.
care, John. Ta-ra,
Bye bye.
mate. Wow, there he goes. Oh, what an amazing man. I've wanted to speak to John for ages. And I saw him in London. I've seen him with the pie and mash guy, man. It's just amazing. There's nothing else for me to say. Oh, yeah, sure. No, that is, we've been nearly 2 hours. It's gone like nothing. But what I will say before I go, that's all. Just get my book, The Emergency Transformation of Human Beings. And you can get it on my website, jasoniasatis.com. You can also get my book on Amazon, but I don't know, there's a different cover on Amazon. I don't know how it got on Amazon. I didn't ask them to put it on there. They just suddenly put it on there. So I don't know. Amazon, oh, it's terrible, yeah, and all that. But guess what? Amazon can bring good things through as well. So let's use it as a conduit for things like my book, yeah. So and there's some great reviews on there. So thanks for everyone who supported me. If you want to support me, you can support me on Patreon. I've got some beautiful people there who donate just £1 a month there. And because I'm like everybody else, I need money. We don't get paid for this crap. But you do if you're dropping bombs on people, and if you're selling drugs and all those terrible things, and creating chaos in the world. But you know, just if you can support me and go to Patreon, or you can go to my website, jasonisatisart.com. jasonisatisart.com. Yes, that's my website for my painting. I'm an artist as well. I've got a little gallery in Devon in Totnes. It's like a little hub. We all have nice chats in there. I want to say thank you to all the people that have helped and supported me for over these years. One of them is Brian Gerrish. What an amazing man. And I've got actually a chat with Brian soon because and sorry, Ben. I'm supposed to have Ben on the show, and oh gosh, Patrick Ennison. All the people down there. And that are working with Brian. And it's wonderful what they do. And David's on the show on the 3rd of April again. I've had David on my show many times. He used to put my shows on his People's Voice platform many years ago, so he's very kind to me. And I'll leave you with one thing. Gerald Salente said to me on the show, and I got to get Gerald back on the show. He said to me once on the show, he said his horror, just like John just said, really, in so many words, his horror is lying dying one day. because we all will be lying dying one day because life's very transient and it goes very quick. Um, and it goes very quick. I'm 65 this year. It's like bam, you know. It's a miracle I'm still here with what I've done to myself over the years, but I'm quite clean and fit now. But um, Gerald Salenti said his horror is lying dying and knowing he didn't do anything, you know, knowing he didn't do enough to try and do something and make some change. And that's what I say to people. It hasn't got to be something massive. I used to go into the hospital in Bath and serve dying people tea, cups of tea. I didn't do it for my ego because I was a narcissistic ego tripper. I did it because it healed me and it filled my soul with love to go and help somebody. There's an old saying, help your brother across the road and you're there yourself. I'm always looking to help people. I'm often the last person I help is myself, quite frankly. And that's quite a failing, actually. So you got to love ourselves. I do. I love myself in that sense, and I try and be kind to myself. But often we treat ourselves like rubbish. So I want to leave you and just say, please be kind to yourself. Be kind to other people. If everyone did that, we'd be living in a virtual paradise. Yeah. Yes, we're fallen, really. We're tarnished souls, really. Yeah. There's always something, isn't there? And it seems like a predatory ecology almost. There's always something that's going to trip you up, and there's always another bill or another debt to pay or something like that. I'm a utopian sort of character. I don't think anyone should even pay for food or water. You pay for water here on this planet. You pay for water to drink. People don't see that as madness. Yeah, you know, food, water, and shelter. You shouldn't pay for that. It could be. I'm not saying it's a paradise here, but it could be a virtual paradise in comparison to what it is at the moment, which is a global casino mental asylum that's become normal, and it's based on short-term greed, debt, power, profit, and slavery. It's been turned to slavery. We've been turned into. I said to someone today, we've been turned into prostitutes and beggars. We have. We've got to prostitute ourselves to make money. We've got to beg for money from our employers or from the government or something. So maybe if it is crashing now and there's terrible things to come, well, guess what? Maybe out of the ashes of that, like the phoenix, we'll all rise and create a better system. But you can do it right now. You can create something good. Try and do something. Just create a little group. Where I live in Totnes, there's loads of groups. Andrew Bridgen's coming down here this Saturday in the Seven Stars Hotel. I'll see you there if you're coming. I'll be right down the front, and I've got a seat booked. And I'm even going to wear my suit jacket just for Andrew, because people like that, they've put themselves right in the way of things, you know. So people say, "Oh, Andrew Bridgen's on the other side." Oh, sure. Look, just do something yourself. Stop criticizing everybody. The people that say people are on the other side are generally people who are just sat on their couches every night criticizing everybody. So do something. Do something good for somebody. Be kind to someone. When you're kind, it releases oxytocins in your body, which actually take away cholesterol. That's a scientific fact. When you're horrible to somebody or nasty, it poisons your system. So be kind to other people. Let's try our best. Let's not give up. I've always got hope. My granny used to say, better to live in hope than die in despair. Yeah. So let's all live in hope and let's try and create a better world for humanity. Because as I've said ad nauseum, there's people who haven't been born yet who are waiting and relying on what we do now, which creates the future where they're coming to. So what we do now, or what we don't do, is my warning to people, still creates the future. Our decisions now actually manifest the reality down the timeline. This reality we see now, globally and personally, is there are random things that happen, but it's mostly an outcome from previous decisions we made. It's consequences and feedback loops. No pressure then, you know. And I've had chaos and mayhem in my life many times. Why? Because I've made bad decisions, you know. But it's all grist for the mill. It's all a learning curve. So I could go on and on all night. Like I said, get my book, go on Amazon, go on my website, get my book. You can order it there. It's called The Emergency Transformation of Human Beings as the Solution to the World's Problems. Because if we transform and purify ourselves and raise our spirits up and create a better person within ourselves, that does radiate out. And it does radiate out and makes a change. It's the hundredth monkey syndrome, you know. You change yourself, you change everything. So no pressure, right? So just be a good person. That's all you got to do. Trust the inner hunches and the inner feelings, and we'll see what happens with the global events. That's another whole story. I'm not going to go on about that here now, but it's a terrible disgrace that people are still killing each other. There's no borders from space. If you go up in a hot air balloon, there's no borders. You look down, it's like I don't see any borders, but they're killing them. They're killing them. They want dominance there. They want to take over the Middle East. They want to do that. They want to do that. We've gone insane as a species. The greatest threat is our minds. We've got leaders who are completely insane, yeah? Incredibly insane. They're doing things for power and profit and not for personal people's happiness and joy and freedom. It's the opposite of what it should be. But maybe it's got to get so bad, like a bungee jump we do from ourselves. Humanity's on a bungee jump. You know, you go down and say, oh, we're going to die. And then suddenly, hey, doing, we come back up to ourselves. We'll see. We'll see. But it'll be fine. I think it'll be fine. Well, there was one more thing someone said to me once, a very wise man. He said, there's a place that's inaccessible to the unjust on more divine levels than this. And I think that's true. So these loonies can create all the chaos they want down here. But if they want to get through to higher realms of consciousness and reality, they're going to have to go through the purification process. Yeah. It's a continual distillation process of the self. And I'm trying to do it every day. I don't succeed every day. I make mistakes. Sometimes I do this. I shouldn't have done that and shouldn't have done this. But um, just try and be happy and be strong. Lift your vibration up. That's where we are now. Lift our vibration as high as we possibly can. Okay. And if you want to buy me a coffee, pop me £1 into Patreon. Go and see me there. Okay. And you'll see the link under the show. And just to remind you all, I love you all very much. Whatever you've done, you can always change. Okay. And don't forget, often the things and decisions you do, the decisions you've made, the mistakes you've made, often come out of just a few basic choices that you had at the time. And you had to choose one of them. Yeah. You had to move forward. And don't forget, you might not be that person now. You know, you did the best you could at the time with the consciousness and the ethical alarm bell that you had inside you at the time and the choices you had, you know. So don't be too hard on yourself. You can change and you can restructure your life. You're a good person deep down. Always remember that, yeah. You are. God's shining through you. Make no mistake about it. Yeah, look at the universe. It's a miracle. It's not a big bang. You've got to be out of your minds, yeah? It was a big bang and everything, boom. Yeah? Well, this mathematically precisioned universe where planets come round and round in so many thousands of years, 10,000 years, it's right back there, blah, 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 the magnetism and this and that. Do me a favor. It's a miracle, and you're a miracle, a unique miracle. There's no one on the planet like you. Nobody can speak and talk and be and look like you. You're unique. Never beat yourself up. The system will do that for you. Yeah. Raise your strength. There's great things to come. We're the midwives. We're the thing being born. And we're the mother giving birth. Yeah. We can do it. That's it. I'm out of here. See you, I don't know, in the next couple of days. We've got some more guests on. David Icke's on the 3rd of April. So I'm looking forward to a good chat with David as always. And there'll be lots of people in between now and then as well. Okay. Take care. I love you all. Don't forget, go and buy a print off me if you want to support me. jasonasat.art.com. I've got a half price sale right now on my website, you know, on my originals and my prints. Yeah. You can go and support me there. Okay. Take care, everybody. I love you all dearly. Thanks again to Jon Wedger. All his links will be under the show. Thanks, John. Well done for everything. Thank you so much. Bye now.